The sirens are wailing. Your phone is screaming with alerts. You grab your family and run to the basement. You slam the door, you catch your breath, and you think you are safe. You think concrete walls and a heavy door equal protection. But in the next 72 hours, that basement will transform from a shelter into a tomb. Not because of what is happening outside, but because of three invisible mistakes you made before you even locked yourself in. Every year, people survive the initial disaster only to die in their own shelters. They had food, they had water, they had walls. What they didn't have was an understanding of the physics that separate a bunker from a coffin. Today, we are breaking down the three fatal errors that turn your basement into your grave and exactly how to fix them before it is too late. Stay with me until the end, because the third mistake is happening in your house right now and you don't even know it. Let's start with the threat that kills the fastest. You are sealed in your basement. The chaos outside has passed. You light a few candles for comfort. Maybe you fire up a camping stove to heat some soup. The air feels close, but you figure that is just nerves. You settle in to wait it out. But with every breath you take, with every flicker of that flame, you are burning through the one resource you cannot see and cannot replace: oxygen. A typical residential basement is roughly 1,000 square feet with an 8-foot ceiling. That gives you about 8,000 cubic feet of air. Sounds like a lot, right? Wrong. An adult human consumes approximately 550 liters of oxygen per day just sitting still. That is about 19 cubic feet. If you have a family of 4 down there, you are burning through 76 cubic feet of oxygen every single day. But here is where it gets deadly. You are not just consuming oxygen, you are producing carbon dioxide. In an enclosed space, CO2 builds up fast. When CO2 levels hit 1%, you start getting headaches and dizziness. At 3%, your breathing becomes labored. At 5%, you lose consciousness. At 10%, you are dead within minutes. Most people think suffocation feels like drowning, like gasping for air. But CO2 poisoning is different. You just get tired. You get confused. You lie down to rest, and you never get back up. Your family thinks you are sleeping. By the time they realize something is wrong, they are already too weak to help. The carbon dioxide is heavier than air, so it pools at floor level where children sleep. Now add that camping stove or those candles. Fire consumes oxygen at a terrifying rate. A single candle burns through about 4 liters of oxygen per hour. A small propane camping stove? Try 30 liters per hour. You think you are staying warm, but you are actually accelerating your own death. Within 48 hours in a sealed basement with a family of 4 and a couple of candles, you could hit dangerous CO2 levels. The fix seems obvious. Crack a window, right? But that is exactly what you cannot do during a radiological event, a chemical attack, or a biological threat. The whole point of sheltering is to keep the contaminated air out. So, what do? You need a ventilation system that filters but still exchanges air. This is not optional. This is life or death. The cheapest solution is a manual air pump with a HEPA filter attachment. You are talking about $200 for a hand crank system that forces outside air through a particulate filter. It removes 99.97% of airborne particles while giving you fresh oxygen. You mount it at the highest point in your basement because you want to exhaust the CO2-rich air out and pull clean air in. The military standard is 15 cubic feet of fresh air per person per minute. You cannot achieve that with a hand pump, but you can get 5 to 7 cubic feet per minute with consistent cranking. That means someone needs to work that pump for 10 minutes every hour. It is exhausting, but it keeps you alive. If you have power, a battery-operated inline duct fan with a filter costs about $150 and does the job automatically. But you need to install it before the emergency. Most people never think about air until they cannot breathe it. Here is the question that most people get wrong. How long can you survive in your basement without any ventilation at all? Write your answer in the comments. We have covered air. Now let's talk about the second killer. And this one sneaks up slow. You have been in the basement for 3 days. Everything seems fine. You are staying hydrated. You are rationing food. Then someone gets a headache. Then someone else feels nauseous. By day 4, everyone is sick. You think it is stress or bad food, but the real culprit is invisible, and it is seeping up through the concrete beneath your feet. Radon gas. Most people have never heard of it. Those who have think it is a minor concern. something that maybe causes cancer after decades of exposure. They are wrong. Radon is a radioactive gas that occurs naturally when uranium in the soil breaks down. It rises through cracks in your foundation and accumulates in enclosed spaces. In a normal house, it dissipates because air circulates, but in a sealed basement, it concentrates. The EPA says 4 picocuries per liter is the action level for long-term exposure. In a sealed basement, levels can hit 20 to 40 picocuries per liter within days. At that concentration, you are absorbing radiation equivalent to getting hundreds of chest X-rays. Your lungs are taking the biggest hit. Radon decay particles stick to dust. You breathe them in. They lodge in your lung tissue and emit alpha radiation directly into the cells. This destroys DNA, kills tissue, and causes acute radiation sickness in high doses. Symptoms include fatigue, vomiting, diarrhea, and bleeding. You think you caught a virus. You think you ate something bad. You never suspect the ground beneath you is poisoning your blood. The truly terrifying part is that radon is odorless, colorless, and tasteless. You cannot detect it without a meter. Most people sheltering in a basement have no idea they are being irradiated. By the time symptoms appear, the damage is done. The solution is the same as the oxygen problem: ventilation. You must move air. A sealed basement is a death trap for multiple reasons, and radon is one of the silent ones. If you cannot ventilate, you need to seal the floor. This means covering every crack, every gap, every penetration in the concrete with radon-resistant caulk or epoxy. You need a vapor barrier. Heavy mill plastic sheeting taped down at the edges creates a seal between the soil and your living space. It is not perfect, but it cuts radon infiltration by 60 to 70%. The professionals use a sub-slab depressurization system. This is a pipe installed beneath your basement floor that vents radon gas to the outside before it enters your space. It costs about $1,500 to install, and it runs on a small fan that operates 24/7. In a grid-down scenario, that fan stops working. That is why the vapor barrier and the caulk are your last line of defense. But here is the kicker. You need to do this before the emergency. You cannot install a radon mitigation system while you are locked in your basement hiding from fallout. Most people prepare by stocking beans and bottled water. Almost nobody prepares the space itself. They assume concrete equals safety. But concrete is porous. It breathes. And what it breathes in will kill you just as dead as starvation. If you are learning something new, hit that like button and subscribe. This information could save your life, and sharing it might save someone else's. Now we arrive at the third mistake, and this is the one that almost no one sees coming. You have air. You have sealed the floor. You have food and water. You are doing everything right. Then on day 5, the toilets stop flushing. The water in the basement starts rising. Within 12 hours, you are standing in sewage. The smell is unbearable. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is the bacteria. When the grid goes down, municipal water pressure drops. Sewer systems rely on that pressure to keep waste flowing away from your home. When it fails, the sewage has nowhere to go but back up through the lowest drains in your house. That means your basement. A sealed basement with backed up sewage is a biological nightmare. Human waste contains E. coli, salmonella, hepatitis A, norovirus, and a dozen other pathogens. In a confined space, these spread through contact, through aerosols, and through contaminated surfaces. You touch the wall, you touch your face, you are infected. Children are especially vulnerable. They put their hands in their mouths. They don't understand the danger. Within days, your entire family is suffering from severe gastrointestinal illness. Vomiting and diarrhea accelerate dehydration. You are drinking your water supplies just to replace what you are losing. Your body is shutting down, not because you ran out of resources, but because you are living in a petri dish. The mistake most people make is assuming that if they have water stored, they are fine. They never consider what happens to the water that leaves their body. They never plan for human waste management. A 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat lid costs $20. Heavy-duty trash bags cost $15. You line the bucket, you do your business, you tie off the bag, and you store it in a sealed container as far from your living space as possible. You are creating a quarantine zone for waste. But even that is not enough. You need sanitation supplies. Bleach kills most pathogens. A spray bottle with a 10% bleach solution disinfects surfaces. You spray down the bucket after every use. You spray your hands, and you spray anything that might be contaminated. Antibacterial wipes, hand sanitizer, and disposable gloves are non-negotiable. This is not about comfort. This is about preventing an outbreak in a space you cannot leave. If one person gets sick, everyone gets sick. There is no isolation in a basement. Then there is the issue of drainage. If you have a floor drain in your basement, you need to plug it before you seal yourself in. A simple rubber test plug costs $10 and stops backflow completely. You insert it into the drain, you tighten the wing nut, and it expands to create a watertight seal. Without this, every flush from the houses uphill from you sends waste flowing into your shelter. You can also use a backflow valve, but that requires professional installation and costs $300 to $500. Most people don't have one. Most people don't even know they need one. They find out when it is too late. Let's talk about gray water. That is the water from sinks and showers. In a long-term shelter scenario, you are not showering, but you are washing hands, rinsing dishes, and cleaning wounds. That water has to go somewhere. If you dump it down the drain and the sewer is backed up, it is coming right back. You need a gray water storage system. This can be as simple as a 30-gallon trash can with a lid. You pour your used water into the can. Once it is full, you either treat it with bleach or you seal it and store it. The goal is to keep contaminated water separate from your clean water supply. One drop of sewage in your drinking water can cause cholera, dysentery, or typhoid. These diseases killed more soldiers in World War I than bullets did. They will kill you just as fast in your basement. Here is the final piece that ties all three mistakes together: time. People prepare for 72 hours because that is what the government recommends. 3 days of food, 3 days of water, and wait for help. But what if help doesn't come in 3 days? What if it takes a week, 2 weeks, a month? Every single one of these mistakes compounds over time. Oxygen depletion accelerates, radon accumulates, waste builds up. A basement that is survivable for 3 days becomes lethal by day 10. The difference between life and death is not how much food you stored. It is whether you understood the systems that keep a confined space livable: air, radiation, and sanitation. These are not optional extras. They are the foundation of survival. You can live 3 weeks without food. You can live 3 days without water. But you can only live 3 minutes without air. And you can only live 3 days in your own filth before disease takes you down. So here is what you do right now, today, before the emergency. Walk into your basement. Look at the floor. Are there cracks? Seal them. Look at the drains. Do you have a backflow plug? Buy one. Look at the walls. Do you have ventilation? Install a hand crank air pump with a filter. Buy a radon test kit. They cost $15. Test your basement. If the levels are high, mitigate now. Buy a 5-gallon bucket toilet kit. Buy bleach. Buy trash bags. Store them in your basement so they are there when you need them. Write this down. Your basement is not a shelter until you make it one. Concrete walls do not equal safety. Preparation equals safety. Remember that question from earlier? How long can you survive in a sealed basement without ventilation? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this video just changed the way you think about survival, hit that subscribe button. Share this with someone who thinks their basement is ready. It might be the information that keeps them alive. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay smart, and never assume that a locked door is enough.